You did. Thank you.
Yep.
So it is 7:05, so we'll go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up. Okay, awesome.
Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you. Since we have a smaller group today, maybe we could go around and do introductions in a little bit. But I just want to give a little introduction about myself and this series and our greater series, our OEFFA Farm Tour and Workshop series. So thanks for being here, everyone. I'm Lauren Hurdle. I'm a grassroots policy organizer with our policy team at the Ohio Ecological Food and Farm Association, also known as OEFFA. It's a lot shorter, easier way to say it. My work mostly focuses actually on the state level, but my background with OEFFA and with farming is in organics. So I've previously worked on OEFFA's certification team, and over the years I've worked on quite a few organic vegetable operations. So I'm really excited to be here tonight. I just want everyone to know that this is actually the second webinar in our policy team's USDA and U series, which is part of the OEFFA Farm Tour and Workshop session for 2024. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. I'll be putting a lot of links in the chat tonight. So there's the Farm Tour and Workshop series page. And then I do want to highlight to everyone that our third installment of this workshop series, the USDA and U series, is the USDA and U Conservation Program. So I'll put the link for that in there as well. A few housekeeping things. Please stay on mute. Ask questions in the chat. I'll be keeping track of those throughout the session so that we can discuss them at the end of the presentation. You can also use the raise hand function on Zoom. Again, please keep an eye on the chat. I'll be dropping links in there as I'm able, and while Johnny and Abby are also speaking. So yeah, like I said, I'm Lauren, so I'll be starting out the presentation tonight, and I just want to give my co-presenters, Abby and Johnny, an opportunity to introduce themselves. And since Milo's here, Milo can introduce himself too. And folks who are on the call, if you can introduce yourselves like in the chat, that would be great. So you can go ahead, Abby.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Hello, it's great to see everybody. I'm Abby Youngblood. I'm the Executive Director at the National Organic Coalition. I'm going to be talking a little bit later on about our coalition, but it's a real pleasure to have a chance to work closely with members of the OEFFA team to advocate for organic. I've been doing this work for about 10 years, and I live outside of Boston in Arlington, Massachusetts. So very nice to be here this evening.
Hi, everyone. My name is Johnny Spiker. I am one of the Sustainable Ag Educators here at OEFFA. So if you ever call in and have any questions, chances are you'll reach me or one of my two other colleagues, John or Casey. We're always happy to help, whether it's an organic transition question or just general agriculture, sustainable ag question. We're here to help. I'm up here in the northeast part of Ohio. Yeah. Not Milo. So.
Hi, I'm Milo Petrozello. I am OEFFA's Policy Director. I am here in sunny Columbus, Ohio. I have been with the organization since 2012, so I've been working in the space for more than a decade, and yeah, really excited for tonight. I'm really massively thankful to Abby for joining us. NOC is we've been members from NOC for a long time now, and they're a big part of our ability to represent organic farmers effectively, both to the NOP and on Capitol Hill.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, everyone. And along with Judy, if other folks want to introduce themselves in the chat, that would be great. It's great to have you here, Judy. So through this webinar and the whole USDA and You series, we hope to demystify the USDA and its funding along with the Farm Bill as best we can to help our members better understand the whole process. And in this presentation in particular, we're looking at the organic program, USDA organic funding, and really how these programs affect us on the ground. So a quick overview of the presentation here. I'll talk about OEFFA and advocating for organics. I'll also review general funding for organics. I'll probably go through this fairly quickly because it's a lot to cover, but Johnny and Abby will go into some of those topics more in depth later in the presentation. Abby will talk about NOC, the National Organic Coalition, her organization. She'll also share an overview of the USDA organic concept, the National Organic Program, and the National Organic Standards Board. Johnny will talk about TOPP, the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. And then near the end, we'll offer some opportunities as ways that you can take action right now on this call. And lastly, after we get through all of that, we'll take some questions and hopefully had some time for discussion. So we can jump right into the next slide. Thanks, Jenny. So I want to take a moment to share a bit more about OEFFA if you're unfamiliar. I want to also highlight that all parts of OEFFA work together with our members to ensure the resilience and integrity of the organic sector. Our education program, you can stay on the last slide. Our education program, which includes Johnny, folks like Johnny are sustainable agriculture educators who are able to offer TA or technical assistance to our organic clients, which is something that's really valuable about OEFFA, if I do say so myself. That's something that our certification staff are really actually prohibited from doing as noted in the organic standards. So it's really great to have folks like Johnny who can help our clients with direct questions, helping them on their operations, visiting them, giving them advice and support. Also our policy program. So that's the section of OEFFA of which I am part of. We work with our members to champion legislation, uplift funding for organic farmers, and we also work to support programs that help organic and sustainable farmers receive really a fair share of federal research dollars, which we'll talk about more in depth in a little bit. And then there's, of course, our certification program. So OEFFA has operated an organic certification since actually 1981, which is far before the actual standards were adopted. And over the years, while the processes have changed since then, what really hasn't changed is OEFFA's commitment to uphold the integrity. Integrity is a big word in organics. The integrity of organics and provide farmers and handlers or processors with a pathway for profitability within the organic sector. And I just want to highlight that OEFFA does not just certify in Ohio. We certify operations across a 12-state region. So if you're on this call and you're like, oh, I'm not actually in Ohio, so I don't know if this applies to me or if I can work with OEFFA, we're happy to work with you. Johnny's happy to take your call. If you visit our certification section of our website, you'll see the map of where we certify. So we can go to the next slide. So like I laid out, that we have all these sections of OEFFA, but for this talk, we're going to focus more on the policy side of things. OEFFA has been working with members, like I said, for a really long time, even before our policy program even existed. We were working to advocate for organics. So since OEFFA's inception over 40 years ago, we've prioritized engaging with our members around organics, making sure it's a program and a paradigm, organics as a paradigm that supports our members. So just a few highlights of what we do in terms of advocacy around organics. We help farmers attend the National Organic Standards Board meetings, which Abby will talk about more later. And we also provide comments to those boards in person and webinars and writing. And that's all really a group effort across the organization. So it includes input from our staff, but also from our members too. We really work hard to highlight farmer and member experiences and feedback wherever we can. And like I said, we've been working in the space for a really long time. There have been a lot of changes over the years. Something that we've consistently advocated for are regulatory changes, because the organic standards are far from perfect, and they also need to be adaptive to real world challenges and demands. So we've also fought for more funding for organic research and better feedback loops throughout the whole organic certification process. And like I said, Abby will talk more about those feedback loops later. I also want to highlight that OEFFA is a longtime NOC member. That's something that Milo mentioned in the beginning. And we work in coalition to make these changes happen. So NOC does a really amazing job taking all of its members' input and putting that energy towards the changes we want to see. So I'll let Abby share more about NOC later, but I just wanted to, talk about what we do in coalition together. So on slide 5, on the next slide, I'll be going over, some different types of funding that's covered in the USDA. A lot of them are funded in the Farm Bill, so I'll highlight those for you. And while I'm reviewing these, keep in mind that all of these programs and all of these funds, we can advocate for them. We can also advocate for changes within them. So that's really what we're talking about here today, is how do we actually engage in these spaces? So you'll see that there are some stars or asterisks on some of these squares here. So those are highlighted as being funded through the Farm Bill. So as we know, the Farm Bill has continued to be delayed. Some of these programs might be what we call orphaned, meaning they could lose funding since they don't already have what we call baseline or mandatory funding in the Farm Bill. They have more discretionary funding that's allocated in the appropriations process. And I'm gonna just say that might be confusing kind of jargon to some of you. So I'm just gonna put 2 different links in the chat where you can, just on your own time, better understand how the Farm Bill functions, where that baseline mandatory funding comes into play. But some of these starred programs on these slides do have mandatory funding, and I'll note that as well. And Abby, please feel free to jump in if I mess anything up there. So on this slide, we have the Organic Agriculture Research and Extension Initiative. This program funds valuable research and extension programs to find solutions to issues that organic farmers are facing, on the ground in the field. So while this has mandatory baseline funding in the Farm Bill, it has 50 million. The authorization ends after 2024. So potentially that will disrupt the next grant cycle. And I did want to bring Johnny in here to share some examples of Ohio projects that have been funded under the Organic Agriculture Research and Extension Initiative.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So 2 that I just wanted to touch on was one that may be of interest to the organic community was at the OARDC, the Ohio Research and Development Center for Agriculture. It was actually a lab that I was in grad school when I got there, finished up an OREI grant around biostimulants and how they affected organic agriculture, to kind of see if they were, worth a farmer's time and money to buy them. So that was a very interesting one. And then one that OEFFA is actually a part of right now with both Ohio State and Central State University here in Ohio is funding for our Ohio Farmer Research Network. And that's specifically for organic farmers, and it's connecting organic farmers together and with different principal investigators at universities to try to find answers to some on-farm research questions that they want to do. And that's really what the push of it is, to do on-farm research. We want farmers to try to, explore some of those things on their own farms, rather than just letting a university do it and maybe not getting some of the results that may happen around the state and on different farms. So that's been very interesting so far. That's currently underway. You can reach out to me if you're interested in that. But yeah, all right, I'll pass it back to you, Lauren.
Thanks, Johnny. And if you want to put in the chat a response to Barbara about the biostimulants, that would be great. Because I have a lot of information to get through here.
I will at the end. I'm afraid if I bring up the chat, it'll be right on the presentation.
Oh, okay.
I'll
Okay, well,
open
maybe
the
we'll
chat.
get to it at the end, Barbara. So we also have the Organic Transitions Program, ORG. There are so many acronyms in the USDA world and in the policy world, so I'm gonna try and make sure to highlight what each of them are. If I miss any, Abby, and you want to throw them in the chat, feel free to do so. So this program supports the development of research, extension, and higher education programs to improve the competitiveness of organic livestock and crop producers, as well as those folks who are adopting organic practices, also known as like transitioning, which I know some of the folks on the call are interested in learning about. This is appropriations funded, but we would of course like to see it secured in the Farm Bill with specific authorization. And lastly, on this page, on this slide is the Organic Data Initiative. ODI is a multiple agency organic initiative that pulls together information that's really vital to maintaining stable markets, creating risk management tools, and also assisting in negotiating organic equivalency agreements with other countries. While this is funded in the Farm Bill, it's also not baseline funding, so it could be orphaned, like I mentioned before. You can go to the next slide, Johnny. So this slide is looking at what is called the Organic Transition Initiative, which is a historic $300 million investment in organic agriculture that includes these three components that you see on the screen here. So it includes TOPP, the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, which Johnny will talk about more. And that, to give you a few bullet points about that program, it's $100 million over 5 years that will either end at that 5-year mark or get more funding, which would be great. And OEFFA is a part of that program. And for us, that would be ending in 2027. TOPP functions through cooperative agreements with nonprofits like OEFFA, and it's funded through the National Organic Program Agricultural Marketing Service, which is AMS, if you've ever heard of AMS. The Organic Transition Initiative also includes Organic Market Development Grant Program. This was originally what we call pandemic legislation. So it was a one-off program with $85 million. And at this point, that money has all been allocated. So with the Farm Bill, if you've been perusing those documents I put in the chat, there are two different versions of the Farm Bill that come together. So we have the Senate version and the House version. And at least in the Senate version of the Farm Bill, this would be included. But we would, of course, need to fight for it in appropriations, but we would like to see it in the final Farm Bill. And then lastly, just kind of under a general concept, the Organic Transition Initiative also includes direct support for organic and transitioning farmers. So that includes RMA, which is the risk management agency within the USDA, premium for organic transition crops. It includes direct support of organic producers. It includes NRCS support, which includes it includes some organic and transitioning farmers so that they can get conservation assistance and cost share and replacement of income during organic transition through the EQIP program. And then there are also a handful of folks across the organic sector, like Oregon Tilth, who are educating NRCS staff about organic and interfacing with producers. So that's an overview of the Organic Transition Initiative. And then on the next slide, we'll go over some miscellaneous that fit under organic USDA funding. So the organic certification cost share program. It's funded in the Farm Bill, again, not baseline. This program you've maybe heard about. Up until this year, it was something that OEFFA was authorized through the Ohio Department of Agriculture to administer with organic clients in the state. This program offers certified operations the opportunity to receive up to 75% of their certification costs, which is not to exceed $750 per certification scope. When we're talking certification scope, we're talking about whether you grow crops or livestock, or if you're a handler or a processor of something. And just to note, in 2022, 304 operations in Ohio received a total of over $156,000 to help reimburse those costs of organic certification. So just, thinking about how impactful that is for farmers is really huge. And of course, we really want to get this more support and more baseline and funding in the Farm Bill. And Abby will share also more about this later at the end of the presentation. Also, this is another topic Abby will talk about later, the National Organic Program, which is also known as the NOP or NOP. That's a federal regulatory program that develops and enforces consistent national standards for organically produced products sold in the United States. The NOP also accredits third-party organizations like OEFFA to certify other farms and businesses to meet those organic standards. The NOP enforces those organic regulations and oversees over 46,000 operations in 100 countries. And the NOP is also responsible for updating those standards with the National Organic Standards Board, the NOSB. The funding for the NOP is authorized in the Farm Bill. Again, would need support through the appropriations process. Lastly, we have on this slide is the Organic Dairy Marketing Assistance Program. This was created in 2023 to assist certified organic dairy producers who face unique challenges, especially in recent years with higher costs attributed to the pandemic and also drought conditions across the country. Just a couple of weeks ago, the USDA allocated an additional $58 million for this program, and the Farm Service Agency is accepting applications for that until November 29th. So if you go to the next slide, this is a really great visual to see where organics fit into the Farm Bill. It fits into that little sliver of other. So, that's a lot of programs we were talking about, but like I said, very few of these programs have secure baseline funding in the Farm Bill. We're just this tiny amount in this pie chart. So it's a really great visual to, see where organics fit in and how we would love to have a bigger part, slice of that pie. If you want to go to the next slide, Johnny, that'd be great. So talking about advocacy with organics, like I just said, we really need to fight to get more funding, more support, that additional baseline funding in the Farm Bill if possible. Also keep in mind that some of the programs, if they don't use the full amount that's allotted to them, they could get rolled over into the next year, but also it's often decreased if the program is renewed. Because it's seen as like, if it's not used, it's not needed, which we know that's not always true. So we need to make sure that these programs are getting used. We need to make sure that they're useful to producers. So that's something that OEFFA does. We interface with our members to make sure that these are useful. And that's really why advocacy is so important, is that we need to hear from you so that we can, kind of move it up the ladder. Like if you call Johnny with an issue, I saw that caught you off guard, Johnny. If you call Johnny with an issue and he's like, well, this could actually be changed with our policy team. And then Johnny talks to me, I talk to you, and then we talk to Abby at NOC, and we really, get the ball rolling on what we want to see happen in terms of policy change within the organic sector. So that was really long-winded. But I'm going to pass it on to Abby so she can talk about NOC and about some of those other programs that I brought up earlier. So take it away, Abby.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate that. And I feel like you did a tremendous job taking some very complex information and making it as understandable as possible. And as you said, there's a lot of acronyms and a lot of different programs. But absolutely, I just want to second what you said. I see a huge part of the role that the National Organic Coalition is playing is to take the input from farmers on the ground, from consumers who are purchasing organic food, and take that input and bring it into our coalition work and really amplify what's happening on the ground. So that's a big part of what we do. So we are a national coalition. We've been around for about 20 years now. We actually formed just as the USDA organic regulations were being implemented back in 2002. And we're an alliance of both organizations and companies. And our focus is on getting more resources for organic agriculture and being a united voice for the integrity of the organic program. We want the USDA organic program to reflect the principles of organic agriculture that the organic community believes in. And we want to have that connection between what's happening at USDA and what the rules are for organic and the grassroots organic community. So we are realizing, and we realized 20 years ago, that means we need to be active with members of Congress. We need to be active with the US Department of Agriculture and also with the National Organic Standards Board. You may not be familiar with the National Organic Standards Board. When I was farming and owned a farm business, I had no idea what the NOSB was, what they did. And so we'll talk a little bit about the role of that board and how folks can get involved in the National Organic Standards Board. The way our coalition works is we really use the deep engagement of our members, including OEFFA, to be a network for information, action, and rapid response on organic issues. And we use a cross-sector approach. So we have a lot of farming organizations like OEFFA. OEFFA is kind of dual in that you're a farming organization. You also have a lot of consumers you work with, and you have a certification agency. So those are some of the different groups within the organic community that we try to be a voice for, along with retailers and food co-ops, organic businesses like you see Nature's Path here, and consumer environmental groups as well. We're unique in that we operate by consensus. So when we adopt a position on something, it means we've been able to get consensus across groups that are coming at issues from very different perspectives, and with very different areas of expertise, but they've been able to come to agreement on a position. And those are the positions that we voice to USDA and to members of Congress. I will also say that part of our focus over the past 20 years has been trying to make sure that the organic program doesn't get weakened, that it's not taken over, for example, by corporate interests or money-making motives exclusively, that we still keep true to principles around ecology, health, fairness, care for the environment, for people and planet. So that's some of the core values that we hold as a coalition. And on this slide, you can see the 14 member organizations and companies that are part of our coalition, really the core of our coalition. We also have over 40 organizations and companies that are network affiliates in our coalition, but it's these 14 groups on this slide, including OEFFA, that really use our consensus process to set our direction as a coalition. So we can go to the next slide. I wanted to just highlight a few things that we've been able to do through our coalition work that I think are examples of issues that impact Ohio farmers and consumers on the ground. One of the things that we have been focused on, as Lauren already talked about, is, for example, the certification cost share program, making sure that that program is sustained, that we have funding for it, and We know, for example, that the cost of getting certified every year, that annual cost can be a barrier. And so that's been a program that we have been fighting for over many years. We know it's due for a funding bump up. We're working hard to try to get that in the next Farm Bill. So that's a program that we think really makes a difference on the ground to farmers, and especially to operations that are diversified, or operations that maybe don't have as many resources, but are already oftentimes using organic practices. A second example I'll give of something that we've accomplished together as a coalition is being able to strengthen the organic standards. And I agree with what Lauren was saying. We have a lot of areas where the standards could be stronger, or we've, over a 20-year period realized, oh, there's a loophole here that doesn't actually reflect the intent that we have for what we want organic to look like. And so we need to make a change to those standards. One area that we have been working on for a long time and finally have across the finish line is a revision to the standards on animal welfare. So the Organic Livestock and Poultry Standards Rule got across the finish line just in 2023 to strengthen animal welfare requirements and a requirement for organic poultry to have access to the outdoors. That's something that we feel is really essential, both for trust in the organic label. When you go into the supermarket and see all the different options for eggs or for poultry, feeling like, okay, organic is the gold standard. And I can be sure as a consumer that that means outdoor access, but also something that we want to make sure is in place so that operations are all playing by the same rules, and we don't have some using practices that are less rigorous and frankly cheaper, and undercutting operations that are abiding by a higher standard. And the last example I wanted to touch on is just being able to, in the last 5 years or so, increase funding for the National Organic Program at USDA. We've been able to double that funding since 2018, and that's been really important in addressing increasing complexity in the organic supply chain. We're now a nearly $70 billion industry, so having the resources to really regulate and crack down on bad actors. Some of you may have heard about cases of fraud within the organic sector. So being able to really staff up at the National Organic Program and bring in the expertise that's necessary, develop partnerships to address complex organic supply chains and make sure that the standard is remaining high and trustworthy. We can go to the next slide. I'm going to give just a very brief background, I hope, on kind of how we got to where we are now with the USDA Organic Program, and happy to answer questions if folks want to go in more depth. But as some of you on the call may know, before 1990, and as Lauren referenced, OEFFA was one of the groups that was certifying operations, but there were a lot of separate state organic programs and different standards in different places. So that was really the impetus for creating the USDA National Organic Program. And, now with hindsight, looking back on it, there were folks who were really advocates for placing the organic program within USDA. And one of the positives there is we can take advantage of the resources, the funding, the capabilities that the federal government has to enforce the standards. And that has been important as we've tried to get money for organic research, as we've tried to get support for producers, and also tap into things like partnerships with Customs and Border Protection to be at ports of entry and to make sure we're not bringing in, for example, fraudulent product that's labeled as organic. So that's been one of the advantages of having the program at USDA. One of the disadvantages of housing the program at USDA has been trying to keep organic true to those core principles and to working with the regulatory process, which sometimes moves very slowly. And so that is very much a part of the work that we're doing at the National Organic Coalition in partnership with OEFFA, and part of the reason for the National Organic Standards Board as well. So the Organic Foods Production Act was passed in 1990 by Congress, and that's what established the organic regulations and the organic program. Through that act, we defined what the word organic meant, we determined who can use the label, and that gave the foundation for writing the regulations to guide the organic program. It took about 12 years to get those regulations in place because there was a lot of debate over what the regulations should say. An initial rule had things like genetic engineering and irradiation and sewage sludge allowed in organic. And so the organic community said, no, that's not what we mean by organic. And finally, we got a final regulation in 2002. We can go to the next slide now, and I'll talk for a minute about the National Organic Standards Board. So the National Organic Standards Board was also set up through the 1990 Organic Food Production Act to be an advisory board to USDA. It's 15 members who are appointed by the Secretary of Agriculture, and the idea is that all the different parts of the organic community are represented on that board. So for example, there are 4 seats on that board that are reserved for farmers, and, recognizing the importance of farmer voices. And there's many other seats as well on that board to reflect different areas of expertise and different perspectives within the organic community. And based on what it says in the Organic Foods Production Act, the NOSB has a very important role, kind of a gatekeeper to what is and is not allowed in terms of materials that are used in organic. So it's not possible for USDA to sign off on a synthetic material unless the National Organic Standards Board has reviewed it and said, okay, this is okay to use on an organic farm or in food in a processing facility or as an ingredient for food that's labeled as organic. And in addition, the National Organic Standards Board does make recommendations on what the standards should say, and they deliberate on those issues. So for example, when the Organic Livestock and Poultry Standards Rule was finally finalized last year, that was based on many recommendations put forward by the NOSB of how animal welfare rules should look in organic, what outdoor access should look like in organic. So USDA should be looking to that board for what the organic standards say. And another really important piece of this board is that everything for the NOSB happens within the public sphere. So the meetings happen 2 times a year, and they are now post-pandemic. You can attend in person. You can also attend and be part of it with the live stream. So they're public meetings. The board, in advance of each of their meetings, which typically happen every year in April and October. So we have one coming up in just a couple weeks. The board asks the public for input, and they're really looking to the organic community, to farmers, to consumers, to organizations like OEFFA and NOC to give input on the issues that they are considering at that meeting. So they have an open public comment period. They accept both written comments and oral testimony, like this farmer, Ryan, a dairy producer in Oregon. This is him giving testimony to the board back in 2019 in Seattle, but they're looking for that feedback, and the board members are actually reading hundreds of pages of public comments before each meeting, so that when they're voting on an issue, they're taking those perspectives into account. So OEFFA actually has had a long-standing role in being active in the NOSB process, so has NOC. A lot of farmers have given input to the NOSB as a result of OEFFA kind of bringing farmers into the process. And I think that's been really important for the board to be able to hear directly from farmers and others in the organic community when they're making decisions. Like I said, I think For many folks, the National Organic Standards Board may not be familiar, so we, a few months ago, did a webinar called Demystifying the NOSB, and we can put a link to that if anybody is interested in more depth on how that board works or just what that process looks like. The webinar we did is presented by 3 farmers, all of whom are current or former members of the National Organic Standards Board, kind of talking about the way the process works and giving some more insights into how folks can get involved. So that's another resource that's available. We can go to the next slide. This is the last slide I have here. I think this is just a nice visual showing how all these different pieces fit together. And you can see that USDA is looking to both the organic community, which is represented on the bottom of the slide, and to the National Organic Standards Board. Those are all the 15 seats on the board. They're looking to both of those sources for input when they are making changes, for example, to the organic program. And there's information flowing in different directions. And of course, the Organic Foods Production Act, that law that was passed in 1990, and then the organic regulations are also the foundation that kind of guides how all of this works. So I will stop there, but happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Abby. I'll go into my portion and then we'll loop back around, I think, to Lauren and do some questions. So I just wanted to touch on a program that is nationwide. It's divided up into different regions throughout the country, but it is the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, or TOPP. And again, another acronym, very acronym heavy. TOPP is broken out into 4 main categories: a mentorship program, technical assistance, workforce training and development, and community building. And OEFFA is lucky enough to be helping under capacity for all of this in the Midwest region. I am one of the leads for the mentorship program here in Ohio. As Lauren said, OEFFA kind of spans a 12-state region, but for the mentorship program itself, I am basically just working in the state of Ohio. As far as it pertains to those who may be watching this recording later or are in the meeting now, if you are interested in transitioning to organic and feel like you need a mentor in the process, you can contact me and I can put you in contact, whatever state you are in, with whoever lead it is, and we will connect you with a potential mentor. That would be a year-long mentorship. They would help walk you through some of the ins and outs of organic to make sure you get a good footing into where you need to be. There's also just technical assistance. You can call me up. I can answer questions related to organic system plans or inputs, or just about the process in general, kind of what you have to expect, and again, get you off on the right foot if the mentorship isn't quite what you would like. Workforce training and development, that's something we're trying to help. One of the bottlenecks of organic is finding qualified inspectors. That's kind of that portion, and also community building, just connecting with other organizations to build up the news about organic, reach people where they are, and help them out. Oh, I think I covered a lot of this on the last slide, but yeah, so if you are interested in becoming a mentee, you can, like I said, you can gain valuable input by working with a mentor. The mentor qualifications under this program are someone who either has farmed or been a manager of an organic farm for at least 3 years. And that would be who your mentor would be. We would help connect you with, obviously, a mentor that is working within the same industry as you, whether that be dairy or poultry, veggies, mixed veg, grain, and we try to match based on scale so you can really get that in-depth look. And here is just an example of the region. I don't know why the Midwest for TOPP is shaped this way, because I know this is not the traditional Midwest that people may be interested in, but these are the different regions if you're in any of these states. And like I said, if you reach out to me, I can connect you with whatever state you may be in, the lead in your state for mentorship or TA. And even, I will say, OEFFA spans this 12-state region. If you're outside of this top Midwest region, you're still welcome to contact OEFFA for technical assistance.
Thanks, Johnny. So in closing out our presentation today, you might be wondering, what can I do to support organics? I know a lot of the folks on the call today are interested in transitioning and learning more about organics. Yes, we need that. We need more organic farmers. And as a policy person, I also need to say we need to work with the administration to communicate the value of organic agriculture too. So if you have a member of Congress on an ag committee, encourage them to support organics. Work with your members of Congress directly. You have a voice in this process, like we've shared in this talk tonight. If you're in Ohio, you would have Sherrod Brown, who sits on the Senate Ag Committee, and we have Representatives Max Miller and Chantel Brown, who sit on the House Ag Committee. So those are great folks to reach out to. I'll put OEFFA's legislator lookup in there if you're wondering who represents you. So with negotiating the next farm bill still, you really need to reach out to those folks. This also can all change after the November election. We might have a new ag committee that we really need to educate. They might come into that position not knowing a lot about organics. So it's always important for them to hear directly from constituents, hear about those organic issues that you're concerned about. And I'll share, or I'll send it over to Abby about, some calls to action we can share with folks on the call tonight.
Thank you, Lauren. I will just say we do have an action alert right now, and we can put a link to the chat box, to that action alert. It's maybe a little daunting to think about contacting your members of Congress, but we've tried to make it super easy. We have a platform where you can, and I know OEFFA also has similar tools where you can, with a few clicks of a button, communicate a message directly to your members of Congress. And so the action alert we have right now is about the Farm Bill. The 2018 Farm Bill expired last year in 2023. And instead of writing a new 5-year Farm Bill, Congress passed just a 1-year extension. But now that 1-year extension is expired. So we have an expired Farm Bill right now, and we need Congress to take action to fund programs, including organic programs. And some of the programs that we're especially worried about are Organic Certification Cost Share Program, and there are a few other programs that will expire if Congress doesn't take care of it this fall. So that's what our action alert is about, just saying to members of Congress, we really need these organic programs in place. We need you to take action this fall, whether that's through passing a new Farm Bill, or if they can't get that done, which is possible, then if you do an extension again, we need you to make sure to fund these organic programs that wouldn't automatically be extended. So we're hoping folks will consider taking action on that, and you might even be able to do it in the next couple minutes while we're finishing up this webinar. So we encourage you to take a look at that. It's pretty quick. And I would just say we would very much welcome if anybody on the call is interested in the advocacy piece or the National Organic Standards Board and how it works. You might want to consider subscribing to our newsletter. We send out messages 2 times a month, typically, on organic issues. If there's, for example, a National Organic Standards Board meeting or a new organic regulation or an action alert, those are the kinds of things that we share in our newsletter. And the more people we can get engaged in this process and communicating both with USDA and members of Congress, that gives us more power to really try to shift from just that tiny sliver of Farm Bill money to a bigger piece of the pie and more resources for organic.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Abby. And I do hope that folks can find some time to complete that, action alert. That would be wonderful. So we have 5 minutes for questions. I saw that Judy put some in the chat that maybe Johnny, you can help answer. Are there books or publications which will help me understand the organic requirements? Like what if I have neighbors using chemicals? What kind of boundaries do I need? All those sort of things. And I'll also just say, Judy, you could also probably give Johnny a call tomorrow and he could answer a lot of these questions and curiosities that you have. But anything you want to share right now, Johnny?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that calling me or emailing me is one of the best options to go over some of those questions, and I can walk through it via email too. But I can definitely dig up some different some basics and readings that you can do. I just have to find a few different things. There's plenty of resources out there though. Again, trying to demystify some of the organic standards, as they can be kind of clunky to read sometimes.
Yeah, Johnny, maybe you could put your phone number in the chat when you have a moment. Also, there's Abby's contact information, my email, and Johnny's email. If you want to reach out to any of us with, more questions, more curiosities. But do we have any other questions right now? Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, Barbara was curious about the biostimulants for that project with Professor Kleinhans.
A lot of the biostimulants were just different beneficial bacteria. I don't remember the exact names, but I can see if Matt has published some of those results yet and could pass those along to you, Barbara, just so you have some. Or I can always give Matt a call, even if it's not published. Still try to get you some of those names, but I do not remember a lot of the scientific names of those biostimulants. I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I'm curious if there is maybe a resource for organic farmers talking about sort of the federal programs that are available and ways to interact with the FSA and the NRCS, just because sometimes sort of at the county office level, it feels like people might know that a program exists, but really don't know the details, and just sort of like, how do farmers then interact with, the federal employees that are supposed to implement these programs, but maybe don't know the best way to go about it?
Abby, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the places to go for information is farmers.gov. There's a bit of a clearinghouse. I'm trying to find a good link to that, but there's kind of a clearinghouse for lots of different USDA organic programs on farmers.gov, and it's a farmer-facing resource that kind of is intended to explain in some pretty plain language all of the different kinds of programs that are available to organic producers. I would say in terms of conservation programs, risk management programs, there is still a bit of it, and FSA as well. There's still quite a bit of a challenge with some NRCS or FSA agents being really unfamiliar with organic programs. And part of the push that we have is more education for USDA agents in organic agriculture. Some progress is being made. So as part of the Organic Transition Initiative, there are now staff within organic organizations who are educating NRCS about how to serve organic producers. So that's good progress. Within NRCS, there are some organic champions in different states, kind of similarly trying to do some education internally about what how organic works and what the organic regulations are. But I think getting different agencies within USDA to talk to each other and to understand organic is a challenge. And that's where groups like OEFFA come in, because I think that sometimes when you actually go into those offices, you may not be given all the information or about the programs that are there. So Jay, I don't know if I completely answered your question. Feel free to jump in again if there's another piece to your question that we didn't touch on.
No, that's I think a good answer in good context. You know, it would be really, I think, helpful if there was, yeah, that outreach from the organic community to the federal agencies about what goes on and how it's different than what a lot of conventional agriculture looks like. But yeah, so.
Yeah. I'll add to that too, Jay. Like, you're always welcome. I'll put my email in the chat here in a sec. You're welcome to reach out to us too if you are wanting to talk to either FSA or NRCS and just want some guidance on some programs that might be available.
Sure.
Fortunately, like, it is just the reality, as Abby said, that like a lot of the offices are not super familiar with these programs, and you kind of almost have to go in knowing what you want. Which
Yep.
not fair, because for a lot of the conventional farmers who are using who are farming in a way that those folks are used to, it's much easier for them to get service. Although I will say, in NRCS's defense, they are trying, and we are actually, that is a major initiative that we have just within Ohio, to do a lot of that work with them. And it's also good to keep in mind that a lot of those entry-level NRCS employees are really poorly paid. So that's another thing that we would like to see, is like NRCS actually take better care of their own employees so that they can take better care of the farmers they serve. But certainly, like, you're welcome to reach out to us and we can help guide you. And or if you go and you have a really bad experience, let us know. Like, we do have direct lines of communication to the state level NRCS folks. And if someone is going into like a county office and getting bad information, they want to know about it.
Sure. Yeah, that's helpful. I'm kind of laughing because my wife actually works at the county level NRCS office, and she recently started, and she's learning about all of these programs, and the people who have been there a long time are just like, oh, no one ever asked about that, so we just don't know about it. So I was like, is there some like resource that she could take to them and be like, these are some of the options that we can talk to people about? But there are also not a lot of organic people in our county, so it's not a huge surprise that they don't know a lot about it.
What county are you in?
Lucas County.
Okay. Yeah, there's not a whole ton, but there are a
No.
few around that area.
Yeah.
What kind of farm do you have?
I'm not farming right now. You know, my in-laws have some row crop ground that I would really like to convince them to transition to organic. And if that's me farming it or someone else farming it, I'm excited about it.
So if you do want, like, connect with Johnny about top mentorship, if you want to actually consider transition or something like that. And we can also help connect you with, like, there are grain farmers in that area, who do organic grain production. So, there are some folks who in that general region of the state who know some of these things.
Yeah, for sure. I actually inspected for OEFFA briefly this season, and I actually met a lot of people around me who were the organic people in the area. So made some connections that way, but yeah.
And that's great. And one thing last thing I'll note is, since you've already made some of those connections, I wouldn't be shy about reaching out to them, because in many ways, the organic community is really very good about sharing information between farmers. And, they've probably, especially for the grain folks who do tend to use and like USDA programs, they probably have experience with their county offices.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share real quickly because it kind of lined up with something I think I forgot to share about OTI earlier in the presentation. Was I think Ohio only had 3 OTI applications last year, one of which was in a county close to one of our other sustainable ag educators, Casey, and that was a very good partnership that worked out, where Casey went to the farm with the NRCS agent and the producer and was able to just kind of connect some of the dots there. And I will say I'm not entirely sure of OEFFA's funding position to do that across the state for everyone who submits OTI, but I think we're willing to give it a shot and definitely at least make a call to whatever NRCS agent in that county needs some more information. So that's just something I thought I'd share.
Awesome. Thanks for answering my questions.
Johnny, there's a question in the chat on OTI, like what is the acronym that you're using there? I think what you're referring to is that somebody transitioning to organic can receive some assistance through NRCS, but maybe you can clarify.
Yeah, that's just it's I think it's a specific NRCS program. Some potential to get funding there. Barbara, I think are you in South Carolina? Do I have that right? Southwest Ohio, that's right. I'm thinking of another Barbara actually, but yeah, we could definitely help you out with some of that then if you just reach out.
Well, thanks for everyone joining tonight. We had a small but mighty group. Thank you for being engaged and being here. We did record this presentation, so if you happen to want to go back and check it out, you'll be able to do that. We'll send it to everybody who registered. Again, take note of all of our emails. If you want to reach out, we're really happy to chat with you further. But thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Thanks all. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.